Hey, so this video is basically explaining my process for creating my thesis animation, which I did throughout the fall 2023 semester at UCF for my experimental animation Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree. Now to start, of course we created some concept art and it's as follows. So my thesis was basically creating a domestic apartment level that is filled with game ready props. Now, as you can see, it's nothing too fancy, too crazy. It's just like a one-person apartment. So we started with concept art, and from there we modeled everything in Maya. Now, this is a lot to look at. Mind you, I modeled everything in this one scene, from the doors to the walls to the dining room props, the bedroom props, the kitchen props. It's all in here. It's all in this one file. I would recommend not overwhelming yourself and creating everything in one file because you'll get all of this. Believe it or not, I had more layers than this, but I just kept deleting and redoing them as I saw fit. But basically, modeled everything. Make sure it's at the 0, 0 origin point. Of course, you want to center pivot, delete history, and freeze transformation so that it stays at 0. After modeling and zeroing everything out, I would change my workspace from general to UV editing. With these props, honestly, I went up here to UV and I did an automatic UV and it did it for me. And most of the time, the only thing I really had to do was get in here and move some things around a little bit to make sure that they're not touching. Just made sure that that this weight distribution wasn't too jarring, and then just made sure it was okay. And then after UVing everything, I made sure to do all this again just to make sure that everything's clean going over. Some objects are either singular objects like the fridge, where it's just one thing. Some objects like the bed are a combination of geometry. So it's actually two items rather than one. Now, the only reason I point this out is because for the fridge, for the UVs, you can see everything is all in one. But for the bed frame, you can see it's separated, and the mattress, it's separated. So for props that had more than one piece of geometry attached to it, I would have to click each object separately and auto UV it. And then I make both objects into a group, select the group, and then instead of auto unwrapping and UVing, I just selected both UVs and arranged them so that they fit within the 0 to 1 texture space. So after modeling, UVing, and making sure everything is cleaned up, I take it over to Substance Painter and paint. So we go File, New, and then we have to navigate to wherever you saved all your props. Obviously, the more props you have, things can get lost very fast. So please just try to make sure that you are organized and staying on top of naming conventions and all that, because if you don't, you get lost really fast. So I navigate to where I saved the bed and open it. 1024 is fine, and boom. So we have our UVs and we have our bed. I did a fill layer of a base color. I turned all this stuff off. I just did a base color and actually a roughness because I didn't want it too rough. Let's make it a red. And I'm sorry, not too rough. I didn't want it too shiny. So boom. And then I would add layers. I would add fill layers on top of it. And let's say, I don't know, let's do wood. After putting in the fill layer, I would add a black mask. Usually you can paint it, or I like to do the polygonal fill. On my projects, it makes it much more easier and faster. And simple as that. After doing some fill layers, I would go in. We always work with fill layers to be non-destructive. To make it dirty a little, I would add color, height, and roughness. Turn the rest off. Make it a nice like dirt color. I don't know, like that. Give it some height. Make sure it's not that rough. Again, we want to add a black mask. Take it off polygonal fill, put it back on the brush. And this is where you gotta start paying attention to what you do. I mean, you always should, but for here, I want to type in dirt, like a dirt smudge. I really like this dirt smudge brush. And Then I would go in very carefully. You can always add the symmetry option and make things easier, but I would go, this is not what I want to do. If you want to, clear everything, just make sure to do that again. But very lightly, I would go in and dirty it up, mess it up. Obviously, I'm on my mouse, so I'm doing this very quickly for demonstration purposes. This is what I would do to put on a base color and then age it. After you're at a point where you're happy with the textures, you want to make sure that you name it correctly. So bed, texture, example. Then you go and export your textures. You find a place where you want to put it. I'll just do downloads to make things easier. Bed, example. I'll select the folder and you see it's named. You can mess with these inputs here to figure out what exactly you want to export, but honestly the default is fine. So we're just gonna hit export and boom, it all exported successfully. So after texturing everything in Substance Painter, now we move on to Unity. Unity. Now that we are in Unity, of course this scene is already filled because I've already completed my thesis. This is the scene, and this is a game scene or game view. This is where I can actually move and stuff. It is in this view because I was animating the camera, but we'll get into that next. In Unity, of course, you will not see this when you first start up. It'll be an empty scene. I just went ahead and populated everything. So this is what my scene looks like without being encapsulated within the room. And once you go in, take a look around, things are arranged in how I want them. Now, as you can see, I've already started some cleaning up. But as you can see, it gets very busy very fast. I tried to do some, cleaning as far as putting things together, as far as rooms and what they are, but after duplicating things a certain number of times, I just did not feel like going back and cleaning everything up. So again, please make sure to follow naming conventions and just pay attention to what you're doing so that you don't get lost or you don't lose things. Now, populating your Unity scene is very simple. I will actually start a new scene just so you can see. So I started with a 3D project. It's an empty 3D project. So we'll give it a minute to load up. Alright, now that a fresh new Unity scene is open, let's take a look. So this is what you are presented with whenever you open a Unity scene. And honestly, it is very easy to start populating things. It's as simple as dragging and dropping. So if I open up my File Explorer, here are the textures that we just exported. Honestly, I can take this whole file, drag and drop in there. Alright, so I navigated to where the bed prop is, and I'm going to simply drag and drop. Now, of course, in my other Unity scene, I already organized how I wanted things. So of course you need a scenes folder to save the scene that you're working in. These are my proxy objects. What I first started with before I modeled everything, they were just placeholders. These are the actual props that are within the scene that are finalized. All my materials, I try to do a little bit of organizing with the bedroom, kitchen and dining, but it just got to be a lot. It's a lot. There's it's a lot. And then the anim for the final animation. Now in the other scene, now you can arrange it how you want, but simply drag and drop, and then you get the prop. Now you can't just drag and drop materials. It doesn't work like that. So first you have to create a new material. I'll name it bed mat example. Drag and drop your texture maps into these sections right here. So the base color will be your albedo. What you want the final prop to look like determines what maps you use in the material. We have our normal. Usually it prompts you to fix it. Just go ahead and fix it. So we have height, which isn't really going to do anything. Metallic, which doesn't really do anything. The roughness, I don't know why, but the smoothness, the source, you can try and put it on there. I don't know, it doesn't really work. So I usually never do the roughness map. I don't know why. But after you make the material and drag and drop the corresponding texture maps into the areas where it needs to go, you can just drag and drop the material on the actual prop. and it will update for you. Now, because this was a group object in Maya and it had two separate pieces of geometry, I have to drag and drop the material to both pieces, but it will end up correctly. Now, once you get in here, you got to take a look around on the lighting if you want to use the standard lighting that Unity provides, or if you're going to do your own lighting, and see just how it looks in your world. Now, this is definitely a lot shinier than what you can see in here. You know, I put the roughness down very low because I didn't want it that shiny. Now, in Unity, for some reason, I don't know why you can't put the roughness map on here, but the smoothness is what that that is. So you can just adjust it here, which kind of defeats the purpose of even creating a roughness map, but whatever. Okay, so that's about everything I did to create my thesis. Creating all the props, UVing them, texturing them in Substance Painter, and then bringing everything over into Unity, creating materials, and making sure I'm putting everything correctly on. Now the last step, I did do some like basic lighting, just like very basic, just put it in and that's fine with me. The last thing to showing off my thesis was to create the animation. Now I did send a tutorial video on what I was doing. Basically, you go to Window, Package Manager. Make sure you have Cinemachine. Make sure that is, if it has like a download or a add button right here, make sure it's on. And also Unity Recorder. Make sure that's on as well. After that, there's a whole tutorial that I will plug in that I followed. But that helped me create this. So this is like the working scene view that I can navigate around at any point in time. Now this is a game scene view that's coming from all these different cameras that I created from the tutorial. So all these different camera view and scenes, and all of these are transitions, camera transitions, as in the camera is actually like moving position, so it's animating. And then this recorder track just records all of this and saves it for me as a video, which is what I turned in for my thesis. Now, you can use this play button down here to see what exactly you're doing, and it'll show you on this scene or this screen. So we can just go ahead and watch, you know, what I did so far. And this is actually a rough version of what I turned in for my thesis. Of course, after I exported this video, I put it in Adobe Premiere and did some light video editing, but most of my animation came from within Unity, and that is the movement of the camera around the scene. You know, you can use this play button to test to see what you already have, but as soon as you press the play button, as in to get like go in the game scene and press play, that's when it's actually going to record everything and export a movie. Make sure you're done with everything and you named it correctly, because if I made the mistake of doing a whole run of my animation and pressing the play button, and you know, I had a good first video already made, and then I accidentally pressed this button again instead of this one, and it overrode my first submission. So don't do that. So yeah, after everything said and done, I just exported that video, took it out to Premiere, did some light video editing, and that was that. You can see my final thesis right here and how it turned out. So after all of that, you know, modeling, texturing, implementing, composing, after all that, this is the final product. Of course, the little video editing is some subtitles, some text that shows you where you're at in the room. There's some slight like zoom ins and fades to hide some mistakes, but other than that, that's about it. That's how I created my thesis, and here it is. It was very challenging. It was a lot to do, a lot more than I anticipated. And honestly, I was like that fade right there was some video editing. That fade and the text, more video editing, and the camera animation. Yeah, that concludes my thesis. Thank you for watching.